Welcome back to Teen TV Deep Dive. Here on this channel, we talk about all things teen TV. Today, I wanted to get into the new TV show by FX called Adults. It takes place in New York and it follows 5 young adults as they navigate their next steps in life. I first wanted to talk about the character Samir. He is the one who owns the house that they all live in. It belongs to his parents and he takes over the ownership of the house. He's very awkward. We see that he's casually dating this girl named Carly. And there are some things that happen with the side character in the show. We see that Samir takes the time to reflect about all of his romantic relationships that he's had in the past and tries to think if there's ever been a time where he's crossed the line or broken a boundary with any of his past partners. And he brings it up to this girl that he isn't explicitly said that they're in a relationship, but they see each other pretty regularly, and I do think that there's a romantic connection there. But he asked her that same thing, and for a moment, it makes it really awkward and really terrible, and it just brings a lot of embarrassment to himself. But also, I got a lot of secondhand embarrassment as a viewer, and we see through all of these moments that he has that are super embarrassing, Samir really does have a good heart. I think he's a good person deep down, and he just ends up in these super terrible, embarrassing situations. But otherwise than that, I do like him as a character. We see that he is unemployed for the start of the show. He doesn't have a job, and so then all of the people in the house came up with these goals that they should have. And so his goal was to try and get a job. And he does this by first going to have an interview with a fancy tech company. He ends up nailing the job, but then afterwards he got a little too excited. They were on a Zoom call. The interview was via Zoom. And so all of the people at the company were like, "We know you're excited that you got the job. Like, it's okay to celebrate." And of course, in Samir like fashion, he takes it a step too far and they end up revoking the job opportunity back from him, and he's still left jobless. So then he starts to take these online delivery orders for people, and he likes it. But then, of course, Samir finds his way into trouble again when he hangs out with these teenage boys, and him and another character that we'll talk about later end up finding themselves in trouble with that as well. Moving on, I wanted to talk about Billy. Billy is more of the type A sort of person in the house. She's sort of like the voice of reason. And the show starts off where she has this super exciting internship at a media company, I believe, but she's just not fulfilled from it. She's not really doing much at work. She just gets coffee orders, and then she sees all these other people around her that she went to high school and college with who are doing these big things and are really being the voice of their generation, as she likes to call it. So with that, she ends up getting into some things, trying to make a name for herself within her job, and she ends up losing it. So now we see that Billy feels really lost, and when she does this, she constantly revisits her old high school. She is a huge part of the journalism club at her school, which makes sense because her job is in the whole communications journalism type of world. She goes back to her high school to think about her quote unquote glory days, as she felt like she had it all together at that point in her life. We see that she doesn't have a job, she's struggling for money. So Billy at this point is at a very low point in her life. And we kind of see that this manifests in a relationship that's not necessarily the best for her. Her old teacher that kind of guides the whole journalism club that she was a part of, they end up forming this relationship. It feels really weird because Mr. Teacher was Billy's actual teacher when she was a student at that school. So I feel like that makes it very weird and just adds a whole nother level of uncomfortability for me. And I don't think that that should have happened. Maybe it would have been better if he wasn't Billy's actual teacher, maybe just an older guy that was into the academic spaces possibly could have made the situation better. But I think just a whole shift in what points of life they're in, and Billy is feeling lost, and I think she in that relationship was looking for guidance from a person who she once viewed as an authority figure and someone who she feels like has a lot of wisdom for her. The next person that we see on the show is a girl named Issa. She's sort of the free spirit of the house, the wild card out of everyone. And we do see that she's in a relationship with a guy named Paul Baker, who kind of hangs out with them quite a bit, and it's to the point where he's around so much that Issa is trying to convince Samir if he could move in. And so we see that Issa is a little bit self-centered. She always feels like she's the most interesting person out of everyone. And also she feels like she's so smart that no one can really appreciate her true intelligence because everyone's so wrapped up in themselves. Normally I don't enjoy self-centered characters this much, but with Issa she was really funny and it made her slightly more likable in my opinion. For the longest time, it was a large part of Samir's character and just a running joke that they had amongst all of the cast in the show that Samir didn't have a job. And so with that, I was kind of wondering like, well, what does Issa do? We've kind of seen a little bit of everyone else's job, but we haven't seen what Issa does for work. Then in the one of the later episodes, we see that Issa is a dance instructor and she teaches ballet to super little kids. I thought that was the most perfect job for her. I couldn't imagine a better job for Issa if I tried. But we do see that Issa is kind of clueless. There are a lot of times where you see that Issa is a little bit gullible and she's prone to being tricked into things. There's this particular episode where Anton and Issa's therapist passed away, and Issa is totally convinced that her and Anton's super emotional intenseness has somehow, some way ended this man's life. And so she ends up hiring some whisperer or medium or something like that to be able to try and contact him on the afterlife or on the other side. And this girl is obviously playing in Issa and Anton's face. She's just making all sorts of random sounds and she's yelling. And Issa totally believes this. She even pulls out a Ouija board and the girl spelled the therapist's name wrong. And Issa was still believing every word that she said. I think that Issa's vulnerability and overall just cluelessness ends up being something that hurts her, as we see in the later episodes. Now I wanted to talk about Anton. He's very social. He's the social butterfly of the group and just overall very likable. He has a easy to get along with personality, if that's an adjective. We see that there's this one episode where Issa and Billy make fun of Anton because he ends up making friends with this criminal and he can't remember when he even did. And Issa and Billy basically critique Anton by saying you make such these super intense and deep connections with people that you're so thirsty for friendship you don't even realize what you're doing. And then these people are really looking for friendship from Anton because they feel like they've connected with him so much that he barely even remembers them because that's just his nature to be so friendly. I thought that was super hilarious. We also see that Anton for work does this whole work from home sort of gig. We never really know too much into what specifically he does when he works from home, but we just kind of see him do work calls in the house and he kind of pretends that he's listening on the meetings and he'll take himself off mute and like pretend that he was paying attention and then he goes back off to goofing off with his friends. I love that because it feels very relatable. We do see that as for Anton's relationship status, he's just kind of taking a break from guys altogether. He's not really in a casual relationship. We don't see him dating or really have a crush on anyone in general. Now, lastly, we're going to be talking about Paul Baker. He's the ultimate charmer. This man can charm literally anyone. He's just so happy-go-lucky and radiates such a positive energy that everyone can't help but like him. Paul Baker is Canadian, so there gets a point to the end of the season where his visa is about to expire because it's been this running joke that they'll go for as long as possible without checking the mailbox, and then when they finally do, he has this super important piece of mail that it's kind of at the super late point. Everyone else comes to the conclusion that, of course, Paul Baker has to get married in order for him to stay in New York. And so then Issa proposes to him, and he doesn't really try to accept at first, but after a while, he sees how everybody else really wants him to stay here, and so he ends up accepting it. And so when they get to the altar, Issa feels like she really can't go through with it anymore. She feels like she's too young, and it's just a lot more serious to get married to someone you're actually in a relationship with than rather than to just do it for a joke. And so with that, you see Issa backs out. And so now we have Billy and Samir really want to get married to him. And even Anton's kind of throwing his hat in the ring by saying, we really want you to say, can you please get married to one of us? And then he does. Turns out it ends up being Anton, which I wasn't surprised because I've seen the most insane chemistry between the two this whole entire season. Like just the way that Anton and Paul Baker have fun together. And then it's also like this teenage girl that Issa ends up inviting into their house to stay to get a medical procedure done. And seeing them take care of her, she even noticed the chemistry and the tension between them two as well. And honestly, for me, it ate. It had me on the edge of my seat. I really wanted them to kind of explore that more. So now that we've talked about everything that's happened in season 1, I want to share some predictions for if there was a season 2 to be made. I think that Samir and Billy would eventually get together. I remember in the episode where Mr. Teacher was acting all crazy because he was on a particular substance, and Samir kind of tried to break the news to Billy saying, yeah, he's acting crazy because of XYZ. I just really don't know if that relationship is right for you anymore. And so Billy was like, okay, Samir, are these some like unrequited feelings or something? Like, is this sophomore year all over again? So I feel like that kind of hinted to there have been some history between Samir and Billy in the past. So I don't know if that's going to get rehashed, and we'll see that on the show. I need Paul Baker and Anton, this whole tension between them. I need that to be further explored in season 2, like 100%. I think it will be because if you know the final scene, everyone noticed that they have some chemistry between them. So I think it will definitely become a main point of season 2. That's all for today's video. Be sure to comment down below who your favorite character is. I would say mine is Billy. Also, give it a like and subscribe if you enjoyed today's video, as well as to follow me on my other social medias at Teen TV Deep Dive Podcast for more. Thank you so much for listening. Bye.